Turns out our ancestors weren't wiser, just making the same dumb mistakes in sandals. 1. The ancient New Year, New Me, fitness, fail. Long before gym memberships and abandoned treadmills, ancient Egyptians tried the very first miracle fitness plan, drinking a cleansing cocktail made of castor oil, herbs, and whatever the local priest found lying around. The idea was to purify the body. The result? Everyone violently regretted their life choices for the next 24 hours. Picture a whole civilization doing a group detox that doubled as an accidental fire drill. And the best part? They repeated this every month, convinced this time it would actually work. Humanity's oldest tradition isn't religion or farming, it's starting a health fad and immediately hating it. 2. Medieval people invented the first "I can fix it myself" disaster. Today, you watch one YouTube tutorial about plumbing and suddenly think you're qualified to rebuild the Hoover Dam. Medieval folks had the same energy. When longbows broke, peasants often tried to repair them by heating the bow over a fire to straighten it, because when has fire ever been a bad idea? Predictably, the bows snapped, exploded, or turned into charcoal. One guy even wrote that he fixed his bow so well it split into 3. Medieval DIY was basically the same as today: a confident start, a catastrophic middle, and a very expensive ending. 3. The great historical "we don't need directions" tradition. If you've ever refused GPS because you know a shortcut, congratulations, you share DNA with countless ancient explorers who got lost on land routes so simple even goats knew the way. Roman merchants famously wandered off established roads because they believed they could shave a day off the journey. Spoiler, they didn't. One group got so lost they accidentally founded a new settlement, which is history's version of refusing to admit you took the wrong exit. Our ancestors didn't bravely explore the world, half the time they just refused to stop and ask for help. 4. Ancient pet owners invented the first "my dog is actually an athlete" delusion. Pet owners today love to claim their dog is basically a wolf. Ancient Romans did the same thing, but dumber. Wealthy citizens held miniature dog races using their tiny lapdogs, convinced they were raising elite competitors. These furry contestants were pampered with massages, special diets, and pre-race pep talks, only to run for 5 seconds, get distracted by a leaf, and wander off the track. Some owners even hired trainers who blamed bad energy when the dog refused to participate. Congratulations, humanity. We've been overestimating our pets' talent for 2,000 years. 5. The first recorded work emails sent at 3 a.m. Energy scribes in ancient Mesopotamia kept clay tablets documenting who missed deadlines, who messed up assignments, and who was chronically lazy. 1. Tablet literally scolds a trainee for ignoring instructions, arriving late, and showing no enthusiasm. That's right, the world's earliest managers were already sending passive-aggressive messages. Imagine being immortalized in history, not for greatness, but because your supervisor needed to vent in all caps. Turns out, workplace frustration is older than writing itself. 6. Medieval students perfected the first "I didn't study but I'll wing it" strategy. University students in the Middle Ages had a habit that would make modern professors weep, showing up to oral exams with zero preparation and then aggressively improvising. One student famously tried to argue that Aristotle was wrong because the moon looked different last night. Another tried to debate the professor into giving him a passing grade. These kids weren't dumb, they just realized debating philosophy was easier than learning it. So yes, the "let me BS my way through this" method is at least 900 years old. 7. Vikings invented the OG group trip that goes horribly wrong. Modern friend groups can't plan a vacation without someone forgetting their passport. Vikings had the same issue, except their trips involved longships, stormy seas, and questionable navigation skills. One crew heading for Ireland overshot so badly they ended up in Scotland, convinced they'd discovered a new island. Another group landed in the wrong village, raided the wrong monastery, and only realized the mistake when their chief said, "Wait, didn't we do this place last year?" If you've ever been on a chaotic road trip with one confident but clueless navigator, congratulations, you've basically lived Viking history. 8. Ancient doctors invented the first "trust me bro" medical advice. Before degrees, hospitals, or even basic hygiene, ancient doctors handed out treatments based entirely on confidence. Got a headache? Rub mashed onions on your forehead? Stomach pain? Drink wine mixed with crushed emeralds, because nothing says healing like swallowing a gemstone. One Egyptian doctor prescribed walking in a circle until the pain gets confused and leaves. These weren't cures, they were vibes with a prescription. The funniest part? Patients actually came back and said, "It helped a little," proving placebo is the world's oldest medical technology. 9. The first recorded "I'm not lost, I'm exploring." Father moment ancient Greek dads were notorious for refusing to admit they took the wrong road. Traveling merchants documented men confidently marching the entire family into unfamiliar territory, insisting they were taking the scenic route. One tablet describes a father leading a caravan 5 hours off course because he trusted the angle of the sun, which was cloudy that day. When confronted, he reportedly said the legendary ancient equivalent of, "It's fine, I know what I'm doing." So yes, even in 500 BC, dads were allergic to directions. 10. Medieval cooks perfected the first Pinterest recipe fail. Kings loved elaborate feasts, and medieval chefs loved pretending they could deliver. Recipe books included gems like a pie that roars like a lion and a chicken that breathes fire. In reality, these masterpieces often burst into flames, exploded, or terrified guests when live animals accidentally escaped from inside the pastries. One cook tried to serve a swan covered in gold leaf, but the poor bird wasn't fully dead and walked off the table mid-dinner. Medieval cuisine wasn't cooking, it was kitchen-based survival horror. 11. The OG version of "I read one article, I'm basically an expert." Renaissance scholars loved showing off. They'd read a single scroll about astronomy and suddenly declare themselves masters of the universe, literally. One scholar confidently claimed the stars were tiny campfires thrown by angels. Another announced comets were dragon breath and argued it loudly at dinner parties. These weren't dumb people. They were just the historical version of that guy who watches one documentary and immediately corrects everyone. Humanity has always mistaken curiosity for expertise, usually within 5 minutes of learning something new. 12. Ancient athletes created the first gym bro who overestimates himself. In ancient Greece, Olympic athletes trained by lifting rocks, sprinting naked, and eating diets that would get banned by every nutritionist alive. But the confidence. Oh, the confidence. One wrestler was so sure of his strength, he challenged a horse to a pulling contest. Spoiler, the horse won, and he lost several teeth. Another athlete tried to impress women by lifting a massive stone and dislocated both shoulders. Basically, the ancient gym was identical to a modern one. Too much ego, not enough safety instructions. 13. Medieval shoppers invented the first "I can totally make this at home." Fail. Long before IKEA, people still believed they were master craftsmen. In medieval markets, shoppers would inspect beautifully made tools, furniture, or clothing and proudly announce, "I can make this myself." Then they'd go home, grab a dull knife, some firewood, and immediately create the world's first DIY disasters. One man tried to carve his own chair and produced something his wife politely described as a wobbly torture device. Another tried to make shoes and accidentally invented medieval Crocs. Human confidence has always been a couple of nails ahead of our actual skills. 14. The first historical "I'm not paying for that." Customer complaint Babylonian clay tablets record customers arguing with merchants about prices thousands of years ago. One guy refused to pay full price for a goat because it looked at him suspiciously. Another demanded a discount on beer because it did not produce the joy promised. The best? A tablet complaining that a shipment of copper was insufficiently shiny, like a 3,000-year-old Yelp review. Humanity didn't change. We just moved our whining from clay tablets to Wi-Fi. 15. Ancient teenagers invented the first "I know better than every adult" attitude. Teenagers today think adults don't understand anything. Ancient teenagers thought adults didn't understand the universe. Egyptian students wrote letters complaining that teachers were out of touch and that parents do not grasp the mysteries of life. What were these mysteries? Having a crush and not wanting to do homework. One teen even doodled a sad little figure labeled "Me, Suffering," the original emo notebook drawing. Every generation thinks they're the first to suffer. the first to feel misunderstood, and the first to slam a door dramatically. 16. Ancient inventors. Perfected the first great idea, terrible execution. Prototype. For every genius invention like paper or the wheel, there were 10 absolute catastrophes. One Roman inventor designed a self-driving chariot using gravity. It immediately crashed into a bakery. Another man presented a clock powered by water pressure, which burst and flooded a noble's courtyard during the demonstration. And then there was the inventor who tried to create a flying cloak. He jumped off a roof and proved two things. 1. Capes don't work, and 2. Physics has no mercy. Our ancestors weren't less creative, just more flammable. 17. The first recorded hold my beer moment. Ancient warriors loved to show off, especially during festivals. One group of Celtic men decided to prove their bravery by jumping over a fire pit for fun. After the first guy singed half his leg hair, everyone else still insisted on trying because courage, apparently, was contagious and stupid. Another warrior challenged a friend to race across a frozen river, fell through, and proudly declared, "The water fears me now." History shows a clear pattern. Give humans an audience, a little adrenaline, and zero planning, and they will immediately invent the dumbest possible tradition. 18. Ancient bureaucrats. Invented the first "let me put you on hold forever" system. If you think modern paperwork is painful, imagine ancient officials writing everything on clay. One wrong symbol and boom, they'd start over. Citizens would line up for hours just to get approval for things like permission to sell 3 goats or clarification about a fence. Some records show people returning 6 times because their request tablet was not shaped to regulation standards. Yes, paperwork used to be judged by geometry. The world's oldest tradition isn't marriage or farming. It's bureaucracy absolutely ruining everyone's day. 19. The first historical version of "bro, you won't believe this investment." Scams didn't start with crypto bros. Ancient Rome had its own hype beasts. One guy promised investors a machine that would turn water into wine. Another claimed he could breed chickens that laid golden eggs. But the best was a merchant who sold miracle salt that cured sadness, which turned out to be regular sea salt with extra marketing. Romans fell for financial nonsense as easily as we fall for influencer ads. If Instagram had existed, half the empire would have been selling detox teas. 20. Ancient party animals invented the first "I can totally handle another one." Disaster drinking games didn't start in college dorms. They started in ancient Greece. Symposiums were basically frat parties with nicer cups. Men would cheerfully claim they could drink like Dionysus himself, then immediately faceplant into a harp. One poet wrote that the ideal number of cups was 3, but the foolish insist on 10. Another guy drank so much he tried to debate a statue and lost. Ancient parties had everything we have today: bad decisions, fake confidence, and at least one guy insisting he's fine while lying on the floor. 21. Medieval tradesmen created the first expert who definitely isn't an expert. Before licenses existed, anyone could claim to be a professional, which is how a man with 0 experience became a medieval dentist using pliers he made himself. Barbers performed surgery because they owned sharp things. One self-proclaimed bridge engineer built a wooden bridge so structurally questionable that locals refused to walk on it, even when he did a demonstration by bouncing on it. The bounce test failed immediately. Humanity has always trusted random people who sound confident, and regretted it seconds later. 22. The first recorded "let's fix this problem by making it worse." Strategy. In ancient China, officials wanted to stop people from stealing government grain. Their solution? Make the grain containers heavier so they'd be harder to lift. The problem? The workers themselves couldn't move them either. Production slowed to a crawl, thieves adapted, and everybody else suffered. Another time, a city tried to solve nighttime noise by banning shoes after dark. People just walked louder. Every era has produced leaders who proudly announce, "I fixed it," while setting the entire situation on fire. 23. Ancient performers. Invented the first public presentation gone horribly wrong. If you've ever given a speech that fell apart, take comfort. Roman performers had it worse. One poet tried to read a new epic but forgot half the lines and began improvising wildly. Another musician attempted a dramatic entrance on a donkey, but the donkey panicked and dragged him across the stage. A storyteller tried using smoke for dramatic effect. and accidentally started a small fire. These weren't performances. They were chaos in togas. Humanity has never been good at playing it cool in front of a crowd. 24. Ancient sailors invented the first red flag vacation plan. Explorers loved acting fearless and thinking very little. One Greek captain ignored every warning about a storm, claiming he had a special connection with the sea. The sea disagreed immediately. Another insisted his boat was blessed because a bird pooped on it. The ancient version of, "This trip is gonna be amazing, I can feel it." Spoiler, it wasn't. His crew ended up stranded on the wrong island, eating roots and debating mutiny. Humans have always confused optimism with immunity. 25. Medieval kings. Perfected the first, "I don't want advice, I want applause." Leadership-style advisors were hired to guide kings, but many kings preferred medieval yes-men. One ruler insisted on building a castle on a swamp because it feels right spiritually. It sank. His next castle also sank. He blamed witches. Another king demanded a new tax to make subjects appreciate discipline, which sparked a riot in under 3 hours. Ancient leaders didn't want strategy, they wanted validation. Basically, they were the original bosses who say, "I welcome feedback," and then fire you for giving it. 26. Ancient farmers invented the first. This shortcut will definitely save time. Mistake. Farmers have always tried to outsmart hard work, with predictable results. Romans once tried watering crops with leftover wine because they thought the grapes would recognize their cousin. They died in a week. Medieval farmers tried a new plowing method involving tying themselves to the plow for better control. It did not give better control. One guy even tried to train a goose to guard his grain. The goose ate the grain. Humans never learn. Shortcuts are just disasters wearing sneakers. 27. Ancient lovers perfected the first romantic gesture that backfires horribly. Love makes people do dumb things, always has. One Persian poet tried to impress a woman by carving her name into a palace wall. He got arrested for vandalism. A Roman man tried to serenade his crush but chose the wrong balcony and woke up her furious father instead. Medieval knights wrote love letters so dramatic they sounded like breakup notes from Shakespeare. The top failure? A guy who gifted his beloved a lucky charm that turned out to be a stolen temple relic. Nothing says romance like committing a felony. 28. And finally, the original "We're smarter than nature." Catastrophe. In ancient Mesopotamia, engineers decided to show the gods who was really in charge of the weather. Their plan: build a gigantic tower to reach closer to the sky, control storms, and maybe get better crop seasons. They ignored warnings, physics, and every structural concern. The tower collapsed halfway through construction, destroying homes, terrifying citizens, and proving one universal rule of humanity. Every time we think we've outsmarted nature, nature takes a smoke break and pushes the whole thing over. It was the ancient world's greatest. We've got this. Oh no we don't moment. And the perfect finale to the long tradition of humans boldly sprinting into disaster. Which ancient fail wins the stupidity crown? Drop your vote. Humanity awaits.